come back to that. Peter Hain.
Well, I think this goes to the heart of whether you can trust David Cameron as a future Prime Minister.
Exactly.
Because he promised a referendum that he knew he would not be able to deliver, and to that extent I agree with Robert Kilroy. He's now promising other things that he knows
He can't deliver.
that he can't deliver.
Yeah.
He knows that he can't deliver all these treaty changes, because why on earth would the rest of the 26 members of the European Union agree to, for example, making second-class citizens of British workers by denying them employment rights, or all of the other things on Cameron's shopping list? He's trying to appease a right-wing, anti-European group in his party who want to follow, and others who may want to follow his party. He knows he can't deliver it because they won't agree to it. Why should they? And then he's promising a referendum in the future on some mythical basis. Again, he's misleading people, and I think that's the biggest problem that goes to the heart of his credibility as a potential Prime Minister.
Natalie Haynes.
It's a bit, I feel like I can set my watch by it. It's 6, 7 months maybe till the general election, so it must be time for the Tory party to tear itself apart on Europe. And you can if you want, obviously, that is fine. But overall,
Suit me.
Well, no, I understand that, and they may for you, but I suspect not. I agree with the lady at the back with the impressively sparkly T-shirt. It costs so much money to have a referendum, and look what happened in Ireland. You have a referendum, you don't like the answer, you reframe the question so you get the answer that you want. I agree completely when people say, you know, we've been pulled into something we didn't want to be. It started out economically, it's shifted into something political, and that's something that no one ever asked me personally about. I entirely understand that. But given that we have ever more limited resources, I can think of better things to spend them on. In fact, I think pretty much everything I can think of to spend them on is more worthwhile than asking people if we can unpick a treaty that will already have been signed. Well, we can't unpick the Treaty of Versailles either. You get that right. Once the treaty is in, it's in.
No, you can. I'm sorry. Yes, you can. You have something here called... You don't need what Cameron is offering. We have something called parliamentary sovereignty. Parliament is still sovereign. If we decide, a government, a Labour or a Conservative government, to have a referendum on whether or not we continue in membership, and we continue to be good friends and neighbours and to trade with Europe, no one is despising you. We want to be part of Europe, don't want to be governed by it. Want to be cooperating with them, want to be good neighbours, good friends, all that. We don't want to be governed by them.
Robert,
so there's nothing to stop us doing that. And that is democracy. Democracy, you can't put a price on democracy. You can't put a price on the British people being able to make a decision on whether or not we want to be governed by ourselves or Brussels.
You have to accept that I just, and I think other people maybe just don't agree with you. I understand that to you that's what's at stake, but I think it's also worth bearing in mind that, you know, like this gentleman says, a lot of people do actually want to be in Europe. And all that would happen if we'd had a referendum, and you know this easily as well as I do, is the question would have been framed to get the answer.
OK, let's just deal with one point.
So it would have just been a waste of money.
Nick Herbert, this point that Robert Kilroy keeps making, that you can break a treaty. Do you believe you can break a treaty? Could the Conservative Party, if it wanted, have a referendum and break the treaty?
Parliament
or not?
Sovereign.
No, we can't.
He says Parliament sovereign.
Parliament is sovereign.
Well, hold on, let him answer.
We can't break the treaty if we all agree that we want to remain members of the European Union, and I think that most people believe that that's in our national interest. I accept, Robert, not all, but most people, business certainly thinks that it is.
So what we can
do is focus on the areas where we can negotiate sensibly to take powers back where there have been areas of specific damage to the UK. And one of the examples we gave was in relation to employment legislation, which has been taken up to the European Union level. They've been passing things like the Working Time Directive. That's had a damage on our local hospitals in terms of staffing. That's an area where we think sensibly we should try and take powers back.
But
the key thing is that where there is further...
So why promise something you can't achieve?
One at a time, I think, don't you?
I believe
like a meeting of 27 European countries.
I believe that we can achieve these things, and I believe that we must, and that's why David Cameron set out the stall. But, you know, people said to Margaret Thatcher, before she went in and negotiated the rebate for Britain, oh, it wasn't possible. You'd have to leave the European Union. They said all of those things, and actually what happened was that she was able to achieve that because she had the determination. Right. But whether our future powers of transfer to the European Union, that must only happen with the consent of the British people. And I repeat, it was this government that reneged on its pledge that Peter solemnly offered at the last election, and had we had the opportunity, had we won that election,
we're going round in a circle here because you said that at the beginning.
Given the public that say.
Fine. Ian Blair.
Well, I think this is an argument that seems to me to be about the past. I'm really interested in the future. Europe is the third most important trading bloc in the world. I agree with the gentleman at the front. This is about jobs. This is about the unity around issues about climate change and so on. I actually did vote in the referendum in 1975, and at that stage I lived in a household that was Conservative. The Conservatives led the charge for Europe, and I feel rather abandoned by the Conservatives. At that stage, the Labour Party were totally anti-Europe. But the point is, it shouldn't be a political argument. It should just be about the future. Because if we look at the past, and it's Remembrance Sunday on Sunday, we'll remember what the past was when Europe was in a very different state. And my own view, and I have been a passionate pro-European all through my life, I just think I want to be in the future because I'm going to spend the rest of my life there.
Let's go back to the question was about the damage that might be done or would be done to the Conservative Party by this. Let me just take a couple of points of that, then we'll go on. The man in the green tie up there, please.
I was just going to ask, isn't it the point of MPs that we don't have referendums? There are elected representatives.
So do you think there'll be damage to the Tories because of what Cameron said?
I don't think so, because it's a dead issue now anyway. There's no point having the referendum because we can't change anything.
All right. And you, sir, in the middle there.
Mr Hayne was talking about the credibility of the Conservative Party with regards to the Constitution or the Lisbon Treaty being allowed as a referendum item or not. Whereas when it comes to the Labour Party, I seem to remember not too many years ago they were not going to increase income tax, but they increased national insurance instead. They were going to have a referendum on the Constitution. It changed its name to the Lisbon Treaty. Should the Labour Party be trusted any more than the Conservatives?
No.
Well, we actually reduced the basic rate of tax significantly, as you know.
No, I'm talking about previously, not in the latest...
No, we did.
Previously.
And we haven't increased the basic rate of tax. We kept our promises. We kept our promise for a minimum wage, for tax credits, for increasing health spending, and all the other promises on which we delivered.
I'm talking about 1997, when you came to power. You said that you were not going to put up tax, and you put up national insurance in the same part.
The woman in pink there.
I find it quite comical that Peter Hayne is talking about credibility of David Cameron. I mean, let's look at what Labour have done for us. I mean, Gordon Brown is not leading this country well at all. Neither is his cabinet. So it really is quite comical that you're mentioning about credibility at all, I feel.
OK, I think we'll move on to another question. That one will run and run, as they say. Let's take a question from